Amazing. All right, then let's begin. We'll stay with our prayers. Om. 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 Agnanatimirandhasya ज्ञानजनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तुते. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे. या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्राविता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेता पद्मासना या ब्रह्मच्युतशङ्करा प्रतिभिः देवे सदा वन्दिता. सा मम पातु सरस्वती भगवती बुद्धिप्रदां शारदे, बुद्धिप्रदां शारदे. Jai Gurudev, everybody, and welcome you all to what I think is going to be a very beautiful conversation. So, there is a lot of excitement now that's building up for, Guruji and coming to North America, doing the Sri Yantra course. But with that excitement comes a lot of questions. What is Sri Yantra? What is this sacred geometry? How is it connected to Mahalakshmi? Is this meditation? Is it coloring? Does it need puja? And or there's something deeper? And maybe the biggest question was, why is Guruji teaching Sri Yantra? So rather than answering all these questions one by one as they come to us, we decided let's do something more nicer, something more beautiful, and spend some time with someone who has been immersed in Guruji's teachings, someone who we all know through the knowledge department of SPN and through his work on Tadatmya Vedanta. Jai Gurudev Rishi ji, and thank you so much for being here with us. So, and let's, because I know we have many questions to go through, I am going to go right into this. And I could say a lot for you, Rishi. Sahadev, I've been studying with you. You have been one of the very important teachers, personally for me. And so I think it means very much. It means a lot to me that you're here today. And I could go on speaking about you, but how about that you give us a brief introduction just about yourself? Rishi said that we can't hear you at all. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do. Thank
Yes?
God. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, these technical setups, they're always, tricky. Okay. So thanks so much for having me. Really amazing. That also so many of you are joining this session now. And Amrita, Dasi, as you were saying, the Sri Yantra holds many great mysteries. And also a question is, why is Guruji teaching it? What is it? Will I have time to practice it, and so on? So I'm really happy to be discussing all these questions with you together. Just to cut it very short, how how I connected to the Sri Yantra or maybe to Guruji. So I've been living here in Sri Pita Nilaya, which is the main ashram of Paramahamsa Vishwananda, since 3 years. And I believe the first time that I got the chance to attend a Sri Yantra course with Guruji was in 2021, I believe. And at the time, a devotee was telling me about the Sri Yantra, how it's kind of at this intersection of something very spiritual, but something also very approachable, and something that when we worship, we really feel something happens. So I was very intrigued. And I signed up for that course in 2021, and ever since, I felt very connected to the Sri Yantra. And ever since, honestly, ever since he taught that course in 2021, it's been part of my daily devotional life, spiritual life, something, some practice connected to the Sri Yantra. And then, especially since 2024, when Guruji initiated me as a Rishi, which is a blessing that is, you know, connected to Devi, to Divine Mother, this connection has somehow become more and more profound. And so I'm super, you know, mesmerized, fascinated, and not to say in love with this Sri Yantra and this deep practice that Guruji is giving.
Nice. So was there something like, when you now, like you did the course in
Mhm.
2021, and then, you would you were like practicing some of the things. Was there something from the teaching, basically, or was it a moment during the course, or was it something that during your daily practice that really made you connect to this, this thing called the Sri Yantra? What was it? Like, was it a moment?
Mhm. I think, I couldn't really say that there was one particular moment that really struck me. And especially when you take the course with Guruji and you know nothing about the Sri Yantra, it can be a lot at once, you know? Because it's such a deep, deep, deep knowledge, wisdom, sadhana that, it can be feel like it's a lot at once. But the for me, how this connection really happened is was through practice, honestly. And it's like, you can compare it to, just when we're worshiping our Ishtadev, for instance, when we, meet Guruji, Paramahamsa Vishwananda in our life, we might have an immediate attraction, an immediate connection, but still, then to really uncover that relationship, you have to engage. There's no other way. You really have to engage. It's like when you meet somebody, um, you know, to know that person, you have to engage with that person. And it's the same also with this beautiful Sri Yantra.
Great. So for many watching here who think that that they are not ready for something like a Sri Yantra, like it sounds too much. What would be your answer to them in terms of Guruji? Because they may not know the Sri Yantra, but they know Guruji.
Mm. So it is important to understand that Guruji gives so many different tools, techniques, so much deep knowledge for all of us, but for each of us individually, but also he gives such a broad range of different approaches how to connect to the divine. And so some people really, 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 really resonate, for instance, with Kriya, the Atma Kriya, and their main devotional approach, or the main way they connect to Guru and God is through the Kriya. For some, they're so into worshiping the deity, and some just have an inexplicable connection to this sacred geometry and worshiping the divine feminine in that geometrical form. And so even and so even if you are not entirely sure what the Sri Yantra is, and even if you don't come with so much background knowledge, even about Hinduism, about Vaishnavism, about Bhakti Marga. But if you have some kind of attraction and you're somehow fascinated, what is the sacred geometry? What I've seen it in some yoga studios. What is this? Like, how does it represent uh, Divine Mother? How can I approach it? How do I worship it? How can I connect with it? It's important to understand that whatever Guruji gives, his blessing, his grace is always there. And so even just by looking, by the way, I brought some Sri Yantras, obviously. So even just by looking at this yantra, we might feel something. We might just feel calm. We might feel at ease. So even by something as simple as even looking at a Sri Yantra, something happens. And so whatever Guruji gives us, even if we cannot absorb everything at once, his grace is always there. And that is the main thing. That is
Mm-hmm.
the main thing. Because you might think, okay, I've seen this yantra in my yoga studio. Um, on Amazon, there's different books about this yantra. But when you take a course with a Sadguru like Paramahamsa Vishwananda, honestly, grace just unlocks everything, you know,
Yeah. So,
simply put.
I would then, yeah, actually, that's true. Maybe that's the beauty about walking this path with a living, with a living master, living Sadguru, that, he just he gives us so much, and especially he gives us when the time is right. We may not be here, but, I see 116 people on the call. So even if I were to take you and me out of this equation, 114 have a calling in their heart, that there is something that they are beginning to connect with, and maybe that's the beauty of of Guruji, and that's what he's bringing in. Which brings me to the most obvious question: what exactly is this yantra? We hear words like mantra, tantra, yantra, mandala, and but that also many times that we don't really want to ask these questions on a public forum, because automatically we assume maybe I'm the one who just doesn't know all of this, and people, they already know all the stuff. So how will you start? Let's start very simply. What
Mm.
exactly is yantra?
Okay. So maybe let me just place it here in the view in a way that is actually visible on camera. Um, what is a yantra? So if we just look at the meaning of the word, we can break it down into two parts. There's yan and then there's tra. And yan means to control. Just like you might be familiar with pranayama, yeah, like we have in Atma Kriya yoga and different kinds of yoga, where it's a breathing exercise where you control yam, the prana, the life force. So a yantra is a geometrical device, an instrument, a geometrical pattern that we can use to control the mind, to control certain energy inside of us. In a very, very simple way, that is a yantra. And now you have many different kinds of yantras. And so you were mentioning the term mantra also. And I suppose pretty much all of you will be familiar with this term. Mantra, by the way, tra, it means to protect, yeah, because I just mentioned about yam or yan, but tra means to protect. And so the way we can think about mantra, yantra, and the deity, the murti, the vigraha, not to say the statue, the living statue of a certain divinity, is actually, these are three different aspects through which we can connect to the divine. We can see the deity in the temple and worship the deity through puja, through certain rituals, by offering flowers, by offering incense, by offering food, etc. We can connect to the mantra by chanting it or hearing it. And then there's also this geometrical form of the deity, which is this, yeah, geometrical representation. So these three all are portals to access the divine. And actually, when you actually see that at temple inaugurations, before they place the murtis, the physical deities, often they will put a yantra of that particular deity. So this is the Sri Yantra, and we can say this is the king or the queen of all yantras. But each deity, for instance, Kali Ma, etc., Krishna, etc., all these deities, they have their own yantra. Yeah, but it's considered that they all emerge from this Sri Yantra. That's why it's called the king or the queen of yantras.
So, would you say that this yantra actually is capable of helping us transform, our consciousness, or is it is it's like a visual tool for meditation, or is it something deeper?
Yeah. So the Sri Yantra is very, very, very deep, and we can say it's a meditation tool, but it's actually much, much deeper. And I mean, what exactly this yantra is and all these different layers and so on. This is everything, all this Guruji will explain in great detail. But to give, let's say, a very simple summary of how we can think of this Sri Yantra. We can think of this Sri Yantra as a blueprint of the cosmos, but we can also approach this Sri Yantra as the representation of our physical body and our subtle body. Okay? So there's basically two ways in which we can approach this yantra. I also have a bigger one here. Not sure if it's easier to see. With
It's
the
a little
light, it
harder.
reflects
Yeah,
a
it's a
little
little
bit,
harder.
but
Yeah.
okay. Just to show that there are different representations of the Sri Yantra.
Mhm.
But even if on camera you don't see exactly each of the layers in great detail, at the center is the bindu. It's a point, an infinitesimal point, which represents the divine. Yeah. And everything in creation emerges from that one source, emerges from the divine, and is projected into creation. So so basically creation happens from one singularity and it expands into this cosmos, this reality as we perceive it through our five senses.
So,
And this is,
Rishiji, I am
yeah,
going to hold you on this right now because I will
okay.
take you fully into creation.
Okay,
We are
good.
just building very slowly.
Sorry. I'm too excited.
We are slowly building it up. What is Sri Yantra? So now we know Sri Yantra is a tool. It's for meditation, but there is something which is far, far more deeper that that is going to be revealed during this course of conversation. But I'm just clearing up some of the cobwebs which are
Sure.
there in the room so that we get more clarity. But I am not going to leave you on this point because this is going to become the crux of the conversation in next couple of minutes, I would say.
Okay.
So now that we understanding like it's a tool, so the next obvious question which actually has come and has been addressed by many people is Sri Vidya and Sri Yantra just the two names of the same thing? What is the real difference between the two? Because like the questions that have been coming to us, and that was a big telltale for me personally, is that people were referring to Sri Vidya in many places, people are referring to Sri Yantra in many places, and I thought this is a perfect opportunity to actually get some clarity right there. What's the difference, or are they actually the same?
Mhm. Yeah. So let's maybe clear up this terminology a little bit here. So Sri Vidya, you can say, is a tradition centered around the Sri Yantra, a tradition that worships a particular aspect of the Divine Mother, namely Maha Tripura Sundari. The Sri Vidya is the tradition that worships this particular aspect of the Divine Feminine and is closely connected to this Sri Yantra. So the yantra, the Sri Yantra, is the geometrical form of the goddess, and the cult, the tradition, the sampradaya, if you will, of worshipping the Sri Yantra and its goddess, that is called Sri Vidya.
I
Not
see.
to make not to make things too confusing, but Sri Vidya can also be can also refer to the Mula mantra, the main mantra of that tradition. Because Vidya is actually a name. So She means divine mother, yeah, Sri, and Vidya means wisdom. But Vidya can also mean a mantra of a female deity. Yeah, so you have the Sri Vidya, the tradition, and within that Sri Vidya tradition, you have the worship of that Sri Yantra.
That actually clears up, that would it be fair to say then that that Sri Yantra, I mean, if I were to, I'm a very visual person. I like to always try and use examples and visual, like just to explain things visuals have. So can we say that Sri Yantra is almost like a doorway, and Sri Vidya is the journey that it opens into?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can think of the Sri Yantra in many ways as a portal to a higher consciousness that is already inside each one of us.
Yeah,
And the Shri Vidya is the whole knowledge that surrounds it and the whole tradition of that particular approach of worshiping the divine goddess.
correct. That's true. So, is and this naturally is leading me to ask, and there are a couple of questions in this segment. And one, and I'm just trying to list it out so that that you would like look at it how you would go about it. Like Sri Yantra is basically associated with Divine Mother, and Guruji has taught us that ultimately everything leads to Sri Hari,
Mhm.
and that that the Divine Mother is actually not separate from him. So, how does Guruji's teachings of the Sri Yantra help us understand this relationship between the Divine Mother, and Sri Hari?
Mhm.
Is Sri Yantra something completely new, or it is a? So my question is Sri Yantra something entirely new, or is it a natural continuation of everything that Guruji is teaching us? And I'm not even touching on Tadatmya right now. I'm just looking at like from the Divine Mother connection.
Mhm. So it's a very important, as you brought up, to understand the place of Divine Mother for us as devotees of Guruji, as Vaishnavas. Because it is not very common that for a Vaishnava, someone who worships Vishnu, Shri Hari, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., to even engage with this yantra in a serious way. Yeah, so this is one thing that we have to note, that we have to clarify. It's not very common for Vaishnavas to seriously worship this yantra. But Guruji explains that the Divine Mother and all forms of Divine Mother ultimately come from Mahalakshmi, that she's the one who is very, very close to her children. And she's the one who protects us, she's the one who uplifts us, she's the one who purifies us, and she wants to bring us to her Lord, which is Shihari. Yeah. So we can think of it in those terms. The mother knows the way to the father, right?
Oh,
You know,
that
in those terms. Yeah.
is
Maybe
very
as,
nice.
children will know, or mothers will know that, if you go to the father and the father says, no, you can't have it, then you go to the mother. And her heart tends to be a little bit softer and she tends to be a little bit closer to the children. So she says, okay, you can have it. You can have it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So this is in a very simple way how to understand the place of Divine Mother in Bhakti Marga in general. She's the one who purifies the devotees, who uplifts the devotees, nourishes the devotees, yeah,
And
to
so,
ultimately bring them to her Lord.
and that also connects actually just with SPN. Sri Pitanilaya, Guruji chose the name Sri Pitanilaya for a German ashram. That's where you are right now, which
Yeah.
also means the abode of Sri, abode of Mahalakshmi. And we continuously, like, how many times in a day any devotee, would take the name of Sri Pitanilaya. But is there a deeper connection between Sri Pitanilaya, Mahalakshmi, Sri Yantra? Is Guruji, uh, this is his one of his many mysteries that he kind of, is just leaving it there for us to, know a bit. I don't know. But I'm very curious to know from you. What do you think?
Well, see, one question that Guruji gets very often is why is he based in Germany? Yeah, because he's born in Mauritius, but theoretically, what if he had gone to India? Wouldn't his mission have been much bigger there because people are much more familiar with the Hindu tradition, etc. But Guruji himself says that Divine Mother wanted him to be here, in this place, Sri Pitanigalaya, the home of Mahalakshmi. And this place, how it actually is connected to the Sri Yantra, Guruji explained in his Guru Gita commentary 2024. And he said, energetically, this place is a Sri Yantra. Energetically, this place, Sri Pitanilaya, is like a Sri Yantra. And we haven't discussed it so far, but in each of these petals, in each of these triangles, all over the Sri Yantra, you have different aspects of Devi, Divine Mother. And Guruji says that also in this ashram here, Sri Pitanilaya in the middle of Germany, in each corner of the ashram, you have one particular aspect of Devi. Yeah? So energetically, this place is literally a Sri Yantra. And if you engage with this Sri Yantra in a serious way and you come here, you might feel that it's somehow stronger here, it's somehow more alive. And then if you travel somewhere, it might not be the same because, yeah, energetically, this place literally is a Sri Yantra.
Yeah, you're true. Actually, I'd gone to this temple in India, Sringeri, and yeah, I mean, I didn't even know at that time, like, properly, if it's a Sri Yantra, what it is. But all I know is that the energy was so different out there. I can't call it intense, but it was such a beautiful, loving, like a mother's embrace, literally. That's and I could not even understand that at that time. But the more and more that I've engaged with Sri Yantra, I've done all the three courses with Guruji 2021, 22, 23, and I try and incorporate Sri Yantra as much as possible. I truly I resonate with whatever you're saying. So I've always wondered. So thank you actually for clearing that up for us. Um, so would you want to expand a little bit on these little triangles we see before actually I jump into Tadatmya?
You see, this Sri Yantra really, really holds great, great wisdom, great secrets. And in a simple way, we can say that you have these 9 different layers, 9 different steps. Yeah? 9, we call them avaranas. You might have heard this term. And avarana actually means a covering, like a veil. Yeah? So a way to think of this Sri Yantra is that the divine is, well, in this human body, it is you can say our soul, or within that soul you have the super soul, we call him Paramatma, Shri Hari, residing deep within ourself. And the whole spiritual journey ultimately is a journey from to go back to the source, back to our divine state. And maybe just to quickly show you, this Sri Yantra is usually portrayed in a two-dimensional way, but you can also have it in a three-dimensional way. I'm not sure if you see it here. Yeah, I guess you see it a little bit. You can have the same Sri Yantra in the shape of a pyramid. Yeah, and there you can clearly see that it's a journey from the outside to up, 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 to the deepest place, to the divine consciousness inside of us. Yeah.
Nice. So, since you're showing the Sri Yantra to everybody, this actually I wanted to ask is there any, like you've shown us a painting, you've shown us, that metal sheet, I am assuming that's like a copper sheet, and, you've shown us this like a 3D model. So are there like many ways of expressing this Sri Yantra? Are there any specific materials? Like, for me, I like my crystals. My house, you walk through my house,
I brought
you'll
one.
find crystals.
I brought a crystal one actually. And
Oh,
I also brought, yeah, thanks to the Bhakti shop here, I brought I believe it's jade, this beautiful gemstone. So,
beautiful.
so in a simple way, you can have the Sri Yantra engrained or drawn or painted or carved in all kinds of materials. Guruji explains about it in the course. Some materials simply are more conducive to divine energy. You can have the Sri Yantra in all kinds of materials and all kinds of shapes and all kinds of colors, for instance. Yeah. So someone was asking the other day if the Sri Yantra has to be painted in a certain way with certain colors. No. Yeah. As long as this geometrical pattern is maintained, it is a Sri Yantra.
I see. I see. And for everybody out there, we have our Bhakti shop. And almost all Bhakti shops actually carry Sri Yantra. Is that true, Rishi Sahadev? And
I suppose they do, yes. Yeah.
and is this Sri Yantra is going to be available when the course is actually done with Guruji, or is it something that is that we don't have to buy one?
So when you attend the course, you can bring your own Sri Yantras, whether you bought them at the Bhakti shop or somewhere else, but ideally, of course, buy them at the Bhakti shop. But and then in the course, Guruji will actually activate them because it's true what I was saying earlier that as long as you have the geometrical, proportions and the triangles, it's a whole science how to construct, how to paint, how to draw this yantra. But another thing is how to energetically activate it. Yeah. And Guruji will do, with Guruji, you can never predict the Sadguru, what he does. Whatever he does out of his own will. But in previous courses, every time you could bring your Sri Yantra and Guruji would energize it. Everybody would put their Sri Yantras in the front, and then Guruji would do a big mass activation, yeah, for the Yantras.
Thank you, Rishiji. Actually, that'll clear up because there were some questions just about that, like where to get the Sri Yantra from, which form to use, can we bring 2D, somebody else,
Mhm.
things like that. So I think it's good to clear this up. Really nice. Um, One of the questions that actually, just listening to you, it was like we are talking of spirituality and science in the same vein right now. Like if for me science is something that actually studies the laws of nature, and what I've discovered in past few years is that the scriptural studies it studies the source of nature. So Sri Yantra, when you're talking of geometry and diagram and triangles and all of this, and at the same time this entire conversation is about something which is so much deeper, which has the capability of, giving us this inner transformation, giving us that connection with Divine Mother. I find it super fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating. Would you like speak a little bit more about this connection of science with spirituality? I think it's a burning question for many people outside maybe of Bhakti Marga, people who are still out there in the world, and they think, this is nothing. Like, spirituality is when you have nothing else to do, you sit down and start reading scriptures, and, this is not for young people. So I find it like very fascinating of this literally being that point.
Hmm. So there's for sure a great connection between science and this Sri Yantra in particular. Maybe let's go quickly back to that point that I was explaining regarding this process of creation. Yeah, because I feel like this is one of the entry points where you can, in a very simple way, begin to appreciate that there must be a great connection between the cosmos, the way science explains it, the way science, modern science understands it, and the Sri Yantra, as the, you know, sages have perceived it. So in the middle of the Sri Yantra, you have this bindu, you have this point of this infinitesimally small point, basically this singularity. And this is exactly where the Sri Yantra and the Big Bang of modern science agree that everything comes, this universe comes from a single point of an infinitesimally small point of time and space that then expands, explodes into all the different layers of reality as we know it, as we see it through our senses. And actually, there is great connection between this yantra and science. For instance, let's look at the number of triangles that we see here in these different levels. So you start at 1, then you have a triangle with 3 sides, then you have 8, 10, 10, 14 triangles. And actually, if you look, I mean, this requires a very particular kind of knowledge. But if you look at the electron shells of different atoms, they follow this exact same pattern of 1, 3, 8, 10, 10, 14. Yeah, and so there's many different connections between this Sri Yantra and the way modern science understands this universe that just can't seem to be coincidence. Yeah. And how is this relevant to our spiritual journey? Because this is the thing that often modern science doesn't address. This is not the purpose of modern science when you look at physics, etc. It explains, it tries to explain how stuff works in the world, in the universe. But it doesn't tell you what to do with it, in a sense. The Sri Yantra gives you a way to raise your consciousness in a very natural way. So basically, the Sri Yantra comes in where modern science stops. Yeah. Modern science can give you a description of the universe, of the different particles, of the different atoms, etc., etc. But the Sri Yantra gives you a way of using the cosmos, if you will, as a map to find your own divine self inside of you. Yeah. So this is why the Sri Yantra is so practical and so useful and so beautiful to engage with.
Actually, that's amazing, that this sacred geometry is just not about, lines themselves. It's basically, then it's pointing us towards that, I think, the intelligence that is behind creation. It's leading us towards Sri Hari. That's where we are going. And that's like the perfect segue for me to actually go right into Tadatmya. You have been like one of the most important people in compiling all that philosophy that's gone into Tadatmya. So for all of us, it would be amazing if you could just take that little time and actually explain Sri Yantra, the way it sits in Tadatmya.
So Sri Yantra, the way it sits in Tadatmya. So this Sri Yantra is basically the geometrical representation of Divine Mother, yeah, in a simple way. And Divine Mother, who is she in relation to Sri Hari? Because as Vaishnavas, as mentioned earlier, we worship Sri Hari, we worship Narayana, Krishna, Rama, Radha Krishna, etc. And Divine Mother, Mahalakshmi, she is the manifestation of Sri Hari's grace. She is the personification, the embodiment of his grace, his compassion. Yeah? So the Divine Mother is literally the manifest grace, the manifest mercy of Sri Hari. And this is why, it seems so intuitive to connect with that grace, to connect with that compassion of the Lord. Yeah. And so this is basically where we can think of where to position the Sri Yantra in the Tadatmya. Yeah. Sri Yantra, embodiment of Divine Mother, and Divine Mother is the embodiment of Sri Hari's grace. And by attracting Sri Hari's grace, we attain Sri Hari himself. So in a simple way, this is how to make the link between this Sri Yantra, Divine Mother, grace of Sri Hari, and Sri Hari himself.
Yeah, I can actually see how where it sits very nicely. But if you remember, I had stopped you early on and I said we will have like a long discussion on this because I know there's another chapter in Tadatmya which is about primary creation, secondary creation. And I am very sure when you started explaining, the Big Bang, uh, I would love it just to listen, and I hope I get lots of thumbs up on it, that we actually get to listen from you on how this sits, with Sri Yantra.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, briefly, I already mentioned how, how modern science understands creation to have come from the Big Bang, right? A single point of singularity. And it's so interesting because this is really where you find the same explanation in modern science, you find the same explanation in Sri Yantra, but you also find the same explanation, for instance, in our Tadatmya Vedanta, which is creation, or let's say primary creation, a description of how primary creation works in the Vaishnava context. You find that in the Pancharatra Agamas. So Pancharatra Agamas are one set of scriptures that deal with how to worship Vishnu through rituals such as puja, how to construct temples in a certain way. But there's also some theological discussion how the universe was manifest. For those of you who have done the devotee course, you might be familiar with these different vyuhas, different emanations of the Lord. Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So these are the four, let's say, four forms of Sri Hari that are responsible for the manifestation, sustenance, and dissolution of the cosmos. Yeah. And the vyuhas, what they actually do is the first step of creation, the very first step of creation is the intention, the will. Sri Hari wills creation to happen. And then the vyuhas, one of the vyuhas, compresses time and space into a single singularity, the bindu. Yeah, and it's literally exactly that term is also used in the Pancharaja Agamas, the bindu, which we have here, the center dot. Yeah, and from there, what happens? From that singularity, from one, you go to three, because you have the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, and once they are activated, before they were in perfect harmony, in perfect balance, once they're activated, everything happens. You have the principle of the rajas of movement, you have the principle of tamas, which is, inertia, and you have the principle of wisdom, of light, which is sattva. And so from there, it's, the elements simply manifest from a very subtle form to a more gross and gross and gross and gross, dense, manifest physical form. And then ultimately, we can think of this Sri Yantra also as the journey of our soul. Yeah, it comes from, so Guruji says that the soul, the Atma, at a certain point in time is cast into this material creation. But before that, it was always, you could say, in a dormant state, in a slumber state, in the cosmic body of Shihari, and then is projected into Prakriti, and then it has to make its way back. Yeah. And so, of course, we can, this is something that Guruji will really explain in detail in the course. But, these different layers of the Sri Yantra, you can say they are a map of the cosmos, of the macrocosm, but also the microcosm, which is our own body. Yeah. So, for instance, you have these 16 petals here. Yeah. And you can say they represent the 5 elements, the 5 senses through which we receive information, the 5 senses through which we engage with the world and the mind. And you have different layers of our being, more gross and more subtle layers of our being that are mapped here. And so the way to think of this Sri Yantra is that at each place in the Sri Yantra, each petal, each triangle, there is an aspect of Devi, of Divine Mother. And so something Guruji often says is that creation itself is female. Yeah. Sri Hari ultimately is the only man, is the only male. And everybody, whether we're in a male body and a female body, we're part of everything that is part of creation is female, is part of nature, is part of Mother Nature, Prakriti. Yeah? And these different aspects of Devi, they govern different functions within our body. This is a way to think of the Sri Yantra also. It's a map of the macrocosm, the universe, but also it's a map of the microcosm, this body. And at each place in the Sri Yantra, representing different functions, different senses of our body, different, for instance, pranas, so different life forces, different nadis, energy pathways in our body, different kinds of agni, different kinds of digestive fires in our body. By worshipping the Sri Yantra, engaging with the Sri Yantra, all these functions, all these devis are harmonized. Yeah? So it is a worship of the divine feminine in a way that is very, very close to the macrocosm, but also to our body and all its different layers.
I mean, I literally would not want to stop you continuing from, saying even more. But it's like it's almost like just it changes the perspective of of Sri Yantra from being like a static diagram into something which is living. It's like Divine Mother, Prakriti, moving through creation, and maybe that's the reason I think sages did not separate, you know, the spirituality from a daily life. That everything becomes, just listening to this is like everything is actually, this is the way of making everything divine. It is the reason I think why we should even respect our own bodies. I think it's a beautiful connection, and I really thank you for that. Thank you for so much for that. But moving from a lot of, and I know we are close to an hour, but I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little more time because we did get a lot of practical questions from various people, and I want to try and attempt and get answers for them. One of the question is that of course everything that we've talked is amazing and beautiful, but the reality is that most of us have a very busy life. Besides we're taking care of home, of family, of jobs. Besides that, we have our own atmakriya, yoga, japa, studies, seva. So how do you think we can add Shri Vidya now, or I should say Shri Yantra, to fit in all of this?
Mhm. So for sure, as devotees, we have very busy lives, whether we're out in the world or even in an ashram, we're all very busy in our own way. But, engaging with the Sri Yantra can be in very different ways, you know, in many, 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 many different ways. The easiest, like the let's say the simplest thing that you can take away from this course is even to have an energized yantra from Paramahamsa Vishwananda that you can place on your altar, that you can place even in the house, because wherever the Sri Yantra is, it harmonizes everything. It cancels out, or it transforms negative energy into positive energy. Yeah. That's why even some people, they place a little Sri Yantra sticker on their phone, like, or on some electric, devices in their home. So that is the easiest. That is something in a way so profound, but so simple that you can take away from this course. Just you know how to place a Sri Yantra in your home. You know how to place it on your altar. You have it blessed by Paramahamsa Vishwananda. You can place it on your altar. You can place it in your home. You can gift it to friends, and you can tell them how to place it. So that requires no time on a daily. You can look at the Sri Yantra and feel peaceful. Feel happy that you have a blessed yantra by Paramahamsa Vishwananda. And then there are different ways and different degrees to which we can. It's like a spectrum of how much you want to engage with the Sri Yantra. Yeah. Guruji teaches how to do a puja, how to do a ritualistic worship to the Sri Yantra. Yeah. But something even very profound but very, very, yeah, very deep, very profound, um, and not so complex, and rather, short in terms of time, is a meditation that Guruji teaches. In previous years, he's always taught it, how to meditate on this Sri Yantra in your body in a particular way, using mantra, using visualization. This is a very, very profound meditation technique that honestly doesn't take so much time. Yeah. You can do it, and if you do it quickly, it's a few minutes, honestly. Yeah. But then also Guruji teaches, shows ways how to really properly, very elaborately worship this Sri Yantra, you know, in a grand puja, which might take several hours. So Guruji really gives, what I'm trying to say, Guruji gives the whole spectrum of, how much fits in our day and how much we're willing to engage with this Sri Yantra. He gives all the options. He gives the whole spectrum, from just knowing how to place it in your home, have it on your puja altar, have it in your sacred space, and simply looking at it, to worshiping it in a very, very, very simplified way, perhaps with some kumkum, which is basically a turmeric with lime heated up and then becomes red, what we place on our forehead, to a meditation using particular mantra, to a full-fledged worship of the different layers. Yeah. So he gives really the full spectrum. Yeah. And something people also do is, because, for instance, Friday is a day that is very connected to the Divine Mother. Um, some people also choose one day a week on which they worship the Sri Yantra. But even something like that is very powerful already. Yeah.
So, so you're saying that like Guruji is going to give all sorts of techniques, all sorts of stuff, to do with Sri Yantra, but it is not necessary to engage with everything that he gives. That it is like whatever connects with us, depending on our time, depending on, how we are, that we could actually engage with it. So if somebody is, for example, let's say puja, if somebody wants to engage in puja of Sri Yantra, maybe just on once a week on a Friday, do you think it's going to take long?
No, I mean, Guruji also teaches a very, very um simple puja, simple, like, it's a very simple way how to worship the Sri Yantra. I mean, the most simple way is to worship it with kumkum, which is very connected to Divine Mother, and the kumkum is always offered to Devi. And the thing is also, the Sri Yantra is a great, great mystery, and also the Sri Yantra course itself is always a mystery for everybody. Even someone like Amrita, Dasi, Swamini Dakshini, because nobody knows what Guruji will give. Yeah, there's always something different. It's always something new. It's always a little bit. He teaches a new way, how to do things. It's always something unexpected. Yeah, and so that's also the mystery. Like, and Sri Yantra course is one of those courses that, even if you've done it, 3, 4, 5, or however many times Guruji has taught it over the years, is one of those courses that's always engaging, because there's always something new. And the Sri Yantra itself is so deep that, like, honestly, I was reflecting on that earlier, and I was thinking, even if for the next 50 years, if I live that long, you never know, but even if for the next 50 years, daily, I would not just worship the Sri Yantra, but, was reading, researching about it, I would still not, there's still something more to learn. There's still something more to uncover. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can vouch for that, Rishi Sahadev.
Oh,
I can
really?
actually vouch for that. Three courses I've done with him. And every time I thought, okay, this time I'm going to understand it better. And then he would completely, like go and give something more. Then the third time I did, I said, oh, now 100%. I am going to understand this better. And again, it was the same thing. Like what he gave in the last one was so remarkable because he just connected the entire practice with shaligrams, and it was mind blowing. It was completely mind blowing. So yeah, what you're saying is correct. If you've done the Sri Yantra course once, twice, thrice, this is a mystery of where Guruji decides to take us. We can't plan for it. We can't plan for it, but it's a grace that he's actually doing a Sri Yantra course. I don't know how many times is he going to do Sri Yantra course, or whether he thinks we are even qualified to receive any more knowledge within the Sri Yantra. And for you and me talking about this, having this conversation, we've just been scraping, just on the surface. We've not
Oh,
even
really?
gone down to what Guruji is going to teach.
Yeah.
And with each time when he teaches, it's something more different. So I completely endorse it.
Because
Completely.
each layer of the Sri Yantra, each of these 9 layers, as well as each triangle and each lotus petal has its own mantra. Each layer has its own mantra, each triangle has its own mantra, each petal has its own mantra. And so you can think of they're called bija mantras, which means seed mantras. And a way to think of these is that it's a certain vibration that activates that divine aspect inside of us. So for instance, if you take a pitchfork, let's say you have a guitar here in the room and you have a piano on the other side of the room and you strike one note, yeah, let's say the E on the guitar, the lowest note on the guitar, you hit that note strongly on the piano, the guitar string will vibrate, yeah, because they're in resonance. Even though you're not plucking the guitar, naturally, because that string is vibrating, that piano string is vibrating, the guitar string is also vibrating. So you can think of these mantras of the different layers and different triangles as vibrations that activate these energies inside of our own body. And Guruji teaches how you do that.
Beautiful. And now that you've introduced the term Bija Mantra, that actually is the next question from one of many people who ask this. They're saying Sri Yantra seems to be something for very advanced practitioners. Is this something which is too Sanskritized, like too much of Sanskrit? Can I actually do this? Or even people like us who don't have too much of Sanskrit skills, just a genuine heart to be with Guruji, to be able to savor even that drop of knowledge that he could give. Is this cause for something like that as well?
For sure, honestly, the Sri Yantra course is for everybody who is seriously interested in learning about this mantra, this yantra, and engaging with it. So you don't have to have a certain prerequisite. You don't need to know Sanskrit. You don't need to be super familiar even with the Hindu tradition, because Guruji makes it approachable for everybody. Yeah. And so I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Thank you. Thank you for easing that pressure of Sanskrit. I know how I
No,
struggle
not
with
really.
it. I may be of the right color, but I can tell you I struggle with Sanskrit. Something else, that we've touched upon is initiation, and you've used that word a couple of times now. Initiation, diksha. So, what does this initiation mean? So, I have two parts to it. What does this initiation mean? One. Second part is initiation in Sri Yantra. Does that mean initiation in Sri Vidya? And third is this initiation going to be open to everybody who attends the course, whether in person or online? So these were the three things that, we got many, many queries on, on this part of it.
Yeah. So Guruji gives this key mantra, this what you call Mula mantra, the root mantra of that Sri Yantra, which is linked to the goddess of this Sri Yantra, Lalita Mahatripura Sundari. She has a Mula mantra, she has a root mantra, and Guruji gives that mantra. And you, even though it's considered a very, very secret mantra that is very guarded by the tradition, to be honest, you find it in books, you find it online. But the real blessing, the real activation comes when Guruji himself, in our case, gives it. Because then it's infused by his blessing, by his grace, and his Shakti, his energy. So that activates that mantra inside of us. So that in itself, because the giving of a mantra, that is a form of initiation. It doesn't mean that you become Guruji's devotee by that. Yeah. But Guruji gives you the blessing in the form of that mantra to worship this Sri Yantra with that mantra. So now the second question, or the I think that was the third question actually, is a bit more tricky. Who will have the chance to receive that mantra? Back in the day, Guruji gave it only to his initiated devotees, but in the last course, 2023, and please, Amrita Dasi, correct me, he gave it to everybody who was ready to, in some form, and really engage with the Sri Yantra, whether they were initiated devotees or not. Basically, the condition he gave, I will give you if you actually use it and engage with the Sri Yantra. Yeah?
That is absolutely true. I mean, the when the he didn't say anything till the last day, and then the whole mystery of it was like, we were online, we didn't know what's happening. Is it going to be initiation is going to be given and not? And then he just came online very sweetly and he said, I will give all of you the initiation today, provided that you engage with Sri Yantra and doesn't just become something that you get it and then you keep it on the side. So
Exactly.
yes, that possibility, I pray that he extends it to everybody all over again. But as you said, this is Guruji, and we all know Guruji is super, super unpredictable. He just does what he wants to. There is no right, there is no drawn direction that can be taken. So, on his behalf, no one, not Rishi ji, not Swamis, no one can take, can say anything on his behalf. Thank you for clarifying that. Um, but so they just related to this initiation is also this fact that some people, when they've met Guruji, they had liked the yantra, they didn't know what it was, the Divine Mother. So they got these Sri Yantra, they bought them, Guruji blessed them, and they have it on the altar. They, kind of offer kumkum because that's what they were asked to do on a Friday. So one question that came in was that doing the course with Guruji, does that change that yantra, that relationship with the yantra, or if a new yantra has to be taken for now that something happens? Like, what is the change that will happen if they already have a blessed yantra?
So if they already have a yantra, you see, the thing is what Guruji gives in that course, in a very simple way, in my understanding, is he gives knowledge and he gives grace. Yeah? He gives the knowledge and he gives the grace. And both of these definitely awaken, unlock our connection to this Yantra, provided that we're making some kind of effort to actually engage with it. So even if you might have had, you might have had this yantra in your home for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years in your family, or if you have an Indian background, it might be, in your grandpa's whatever store or whatever. But the knowledge and the grace and the willingness to engage with it just opens up something that was just never there. Yeah. So it definitely changes things.
It sounds more and more, it's like, Guruji is giving us an opportunity to actually have this sacred relationship, which is also built on responsibility, His grace and guidance. And it's almost like, the first time I did Atmic Kriya Yoga, I was so overwhelmed. I didn't want to practice. Then I didn't practice for a little while. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. But you know how it is, step by step, with gentle guidance, you keep going. And now it's just become like a part of everyday routine. You don't even think twice. You just like any other thing. I'm going to grab my cup of coffee. I'm going to do my, I'm going to do my Atma Kriya Yoga, and I'm hoping that this course will be one of those that Sri, the Yantra will also become part of our life, just like that. And I think with this, I'm going to open up the forum for any questions that anybody might first have.
I think there are also some questions in the chat here.
All right, let's go through them.
The first one that I see, Dev. So we must bring a Sri Yantra on the first day of the course with Guruji. You're free to take a yantra to the course, but you don't have to. You don't need to bring one, but you can have one blessed if you wish to do so. Can we purchase the Sri Yantra at the course in Toronto? Maybe Amrita, does you have more
Absolutely,
information? But I would think
absolutely.
so, yeah.
There is going to be the Bhakti shop there in Toronto. And if you do not, I mean, if you want to buy it beforehand, you can do that. Or if you want to, come there and then buy it, absolutely. The choices, are all there. It's completely up to you.
For online participants, will there also be a mass blessing of our yantras? Last year, last time Guruji gave the course, yes, also the online participants, they could have their yantra blessed. Yeah. After the Sri Yantra meditation, the yantra that we draw can be worshipped. Can we do puja for that particular Sri Yantra? I mean, of course, when
Rishiji, if I could just add to, this
uh-huh,
question, just to
uh-huh.
add to this question, actually drawing the Sri Yantra, coloring the Sri Yantra is the course, which, is a separate topic that, we have many, many, many teachers in almost all countries who actually can teach you how to draw the Sri Yantra as per, how Guruji has taught us, and coloring meditation. But that will not be covered in this course for sure. That
Yeah.
will not be covered. This is Guruji giving initiation in Sri Yantra. This is not about drawing or coloring. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rishi Sadev.
No, exactly. Thanks for bringing that up because yeah, that's a great clarification. So you won't, just to clarify again what she just said, you won't learn how to paint this Yantra, how to construct this Yantra. There's different teachers within Bhakti Marga where you can actually learn how to construct it and paint it. But if you have a yantra that you created yourself, then also that can be worshipped. Like I mean, any Sri yantra can be worshipped. Jay Gurudev, how can we better prepare for this course in the meantime? It's an interesting question. Um, I mean, in a sense, there are some, for sure, some very good resources regarding the Sri Yantra. Whether that's online resources or books. Um, it's not that it's a must. I'm not even sure if it's recommended or not, but it might be, you might be, if you're already familiar with certain concepts, if you already, know that there are different layers, if you've already, if in general you have some kind of knowledge of the Sri Yantra, it might help you in the course. Yeah. Dev, sorry I missed the beginning. We know Guruji was initiated in the Shi Sampradaya long ago. Do we know where did that connection to Shividya tradition come from? Oh, it's an interesting question. Kind of had a feeling that someone would ask that question. Like basically what you're asking is how does Guruji know about Shividya? I'm not sure he ever said that, and maybe Amrita does. Maybe he said that in one of the previous courses. So if he had said that specifically, explicitly, please jump in. Otherwise, I would say that Guruji is simply born with that knowledge.
Yeah,
And
that's true, actually. He's never said anything. Actually, nobody's ever, that has never actually come up.
mm,
So I find the question very interesting. But I completely resonate with what you're saying, Rishi Sadev, that maybe he's just born with that. I don't know what, where does that stand? But
so once it was a private conversation with a devotee, and Guruji in that private conversation said that he knows all sadhanas. He knows all sadhanas, which would include the Shi Vidya tradition, the Shi Yantra. Sometimes, so I cannot attest to the correctness of that. Yeah, so please take it with a grain of salt. I have not heard that from Guruji, but some people say that Mahavatar Babaji initiates Mahavatar Babaji gives the knowledge of Shividya. I've not heard that from Guruji himself, but some people say that. Yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
Hey, Gurudev, can I say, in one of the courses, Guruji said, long time ago, even before he knows he was going to teach, he said in Chennai somewhere, he got initiated into this Sri Yantra part in one of the courses. I don't remember it's 2021 or recently the 2023 course. He talked about that. He said this is before I even know I'm going to teach. I was already given this. That's what he said.
Okay, so this okay, then I suppose this is the answer to the question. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, new question. Or Bhakti Marga on the Bhakti path, how does the Sri Yantra connect with Bhakti or even Bhakti Devi? As we're talking about the Divine Mother here. How does it connect to Bhakti? Well, whether it's the puja, whether it's the meditation, whether it's, engaging with the Sri Yantra in any way, it's a way to connect to Divine Mother in a loving way, and that itself is an act of devotion. Yeah, and Bhakti Devi. I mean, Bhakti. So, what is Bhakti Devi? The idea is that Bhakti, her devotion itself, is manifest as a goddess, and you could say that all forms of the Divine Mother are connected. Yeah, they all come from the same source. So by engaging with that Sri Yantra, how it relates to Bhakti specifically, my understanding is very close to how, for instance, Atma Kriya Yoga is connected to Bhakti. It purifies us, it purifies the different layers of our being, and through that, the devotion that is inherent to our soul, to our Atma, is able to shine through. Yeah, this is something Guruji says that the bhakti, the love, it doesn't come from outside. No, it's the soul's natural state to be in love with God. Yeah, and by engaging with the Sri Yantra, the different layers of our being are purified. Our body, our nadis, chakras, pranas, etc. These our mind, different layers of our being are purified. And through that, bhakti can manifest more naturally. I think there were also some questions that people had asked in the Satsang channel. And I'm not sure if we...
Questions, I think we covered most of the questions, but
Okay.
quickly we can go over some of the things which we have missed, I'm sure.
Just double check. So there's one question. We've kind of addressed it roughly, but not very explicitly. How can Sri Yantra help us understand Prakriti and the truth of our reality? How does meditating on and drawing it help expand our consciousness and help us on our inward journey? So just again, we mentioned it already. You won't learn how to draw the Sri Yantra, but you will learn how to meditate on it. And yeah, it's, you meditate on the different layers of the Sri Yantra going from outside to inside. Yeah, going from like mundane consciousness to higher and higher and higher and more subtle and subtle planes inside of yourself. And through that, it helps to expand our consciousness and progress on this inward journey. Um, I suppose we've addressed all the questions, I think. Yeah. Okay.
So, Rishiji, before actually we close,
Mm-hmm.
if I would love to ask you that if someone had to remember only one thing from today's conversation, what do you think should that be?
What to remember from today's conversation? I mean, a lot of the discussion was, of course, regarding the nature of the Sri Yantra. So, in a very, very, very simple way, just as simple, just like you walk out and your friend tells you, "Oh, Paramahamsa Vishwananda is doing this Sri Yantra course. Do you know anything about it?" You can tell them, "Yes, the Sri Yantra is a geometrical form of the Divine Mother, and by engaging with this mantra, yantra, the different levels of our being are purified and help us to awaken divine love for God." That's essentially why we're here. This is essentially why, you know, people would sign up for this course. And so that was regarding the nature of the Sri Yantra. And regarding the actual course itself, what Guruji will give is knowledge and grace. And then, if we make an effort to engage, even in a small way, even in a simple way, with the Sri Yantra, this grace and this knowledge will really awaken something inside of us that we might have never perceived before. Because this Sri Yantra itself, it's a blueprint of the macrocosm, it's a blueprint of the microcosm, namely our own body. And this yantra itself is that divine energy, that divine Shakti, you could also call it Kundalini Shakti, inside of our being that gets activated through the worship of this Sri Yantra. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rishi Sahadev, for coming and sharing your knowledge and your heart. We've touched upon philosophy, symbolism, practice, Divine Mother. Um, and my main takeaway is that Sri Yantra is asking us, giving us an opportunity basically to get more connected with our own selves, to the divine, to our Sadguru, who's guiding us ultimately through everything. And this conversation, I feel, is just an invitation to begin that real journey with Guruji. So thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. And Rishi Sadev, if you can just close the session with the prayers.
Okay, thank you so much, Amrita Dasi. Thank you so much for the Bhakti Marga America Sangha and all the international devotees, followers, or whoever joined and was just curious to know more. Thank you so much. Yeah, Amrita Dasi had to stop me at times, so thank you because I was getting too excited. And I really wish that, yeah, we can all be blessed by Guruji and through this Sri Yantra and let it just awaken something deep inside of us. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, everybody. Om Shanti 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 Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Principal Sadgurudev Sri Swami Vishwananda Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Thank you. Thank you.